Good morning, good afternoon to all participants. Thank you for your enthusiasm joining the Low Carbon Assurance Module Lesson Learned as part of the ISIL innovation supported by Swiss State Secretariat for Economic Affairs, SECO, and UK International Development from the UK government. So before we dive in, I will hand over to my colleague Sumita to kick off things off with a brief survey. Hand over to you, Sumita. I will stop my screen.
Thank you, Christy. Allow me a minute to share my screen. We just have a very short survey to get started, and hopefully it'll get you all energized. Also, I am aware that a few people are still dialing in, so we'll give you just a few seconds to scan this QR code and join. It's a very simple survey. I think most of you are used to these kind of formats just to collect a little bit about what you're expecting from these, from today's webinar, who you are, just some quick impressions from you all. So please scan this QR code while we're waiting for a few more participants. Maybe I'll wait for about at least 30 people to join before we continue. We did have almost 180 people register for this session, so it's, something a lot of people seem to be keen to learn about. So we will definitely take some time to wait for a few people to join. So again, giving you about 30 seconds to join in. Feel free to just drop a hi and where you are from in the chat just while we are waiting for a few more people to join. We have 11 people in the poll room right now. We'll wait for a few more. We'll wait for at least 30 people to join before we continue. Some people seem to be getting disconnected. I hope there are no issues. Okay, people are sending their thumbs up, so I hope people are still logging in. I don't remember, where is it? Next.
So while waiting, I just want to let everyone know that this session is recording. So we will share the record session to all registrants participants.
Okay, we'll get started now. So describe how you're feeling in one word, just one word, whatever's on the top of your mind. Curious, intrigued, stressed. That's a funny one. Interested. Um, well, because a few of you are curious and interested, that's why we are here. I we were not hoping to stress anyone, but hopefully this session will make you feel a little better. Uh, nice. Happy. That's a good one. Intrigued. I hope a few more people will join this survey. It's a very short one. We have just about 9 people in, so I hope a few more of you join. Don't worry, this is not going to make you more stressed. Hopefully, this survey makes you feel slightly happier. Okay, we'll give maybe 5 or 10 more seconds for people to type. Cool. It is indeed a cool topic, very, very in trend. Okay, maybe we'll just move this a little forward. I do hope a few more of you join. So, as we said earlier, we just want to know a little bit more about you, about what is the nature of your organization. Okay, we have millers, retailers, any civil society organizations here, NGOs or CABs, training providers. Okay, maybe I'll just move this forward now. Okay, there's a trick question for you. What does LCAM stand for? Is it life cycle assessment module or low carbon assurance module? Yeah, we seem to be facing a few technical difficulties with this question. Can you meanwhile type into the chat? What do you think LCAM stands for? Is it low carbon assurance module or life cycle assessment module? Okay, let's wait for this counter. I'm pretty sure if you know the answer, but we just have a trick question here for you. Okay, get ready. And okay, for those of you who got it wrong, this is actually feedback for us. Maybe we need to be more careful with our acronyms a little bit. But okay, the next quiz question isn't really, it doesn't have any right or wrong answers. We want to learn from you whether you think the market is ready to pay for low emissions rice or for something like LCAN. Okay, a lot of no's here. Don't knows. Fair enough. Okay. No is still dominating. Okay. Maybe we'll move this forward a little bit more. So understand a lot of you feel that low emissions rice is not yet ready to earn a market premium, but which of these products do you think can earn a premium? Is it something like fortified or organic or specialty rice, low emissions rice, or SRP with an add-on of low emissions rice, given that SRP does take into account multifaceted tranche of requirements? Okay, Tristy, I'm a little optimistic with this because there are a few people who do believe that SRP and low emissions rice can earn a high premium. And of course, we are targeting those niche people who do believe in this. So definitely this is something I take away with optimism. But with that, maybe I'm going to conclude this survey. Thank you so much for participating, and I hand it back to Tristy to continue with her session. And of course, the last question is, what are you expecting from this session? It's free form, just type into the chat window. All we want to know is what you're expecting here. And while people are chat typing in, Shrishti, I hand it back to you.
Thank you, Shumita. Let me start sharing my screen. Let me know if you can see them. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Great. Okay, so this funding from ISIL Innovations allow us to run real pilots with the tests to the methodology and refine the assurance approach with actual implementers. So today we will see which one that works, which one that didn't work, what needs to change in the scales, and comes directly from that collaborations. So as we move into the lesson learned, keep in mind the goal has always been practical, scalable assurance that market can trust. So these SRP low carbon assurance modules enable buyers or off-takers of SRP verified rice to claim benefits against science-based target initiatives. So SRP low carbon assurance is an add-on on the SRP assurance, means that it can only work when the producers or your suppliers using the SRP standard for sustainable rice cultivations. So there are two options to secure supplies: by change the inventory boundaries, which or add their supplies to include the SRP verified producers, or you can sponsor the suppliers to become SRP verified producers. These are the 3 practice changes are eligible for emission reduction quantifications. If a project doesn't touch one of these, then it won't generate credible emission reductions. The first practices is irrigation. So this usually known or famous with the alternate wet and dry system, or any controlled flooding approach cuts methane fast. This is the biggest driver of reductions. The second is residue management, no burning, simple rule, but projects fail here because they don't verify it properly. And third is the nutrient management. This isn't use less fertilizer blindly, but it is targeting reductions and efficiency, cutting the excess nitrogen that ends up as a nitrous oxide. So these 3 pathways are the backbone of LCAM, or low carbon assurance module quantifications. Everything else is a good practices, but it will not count toward emissions numbers. Our pilot projects funded by ISIL Innovation is located in India, but then our partners, Mars and Regrow, they also have this small quantification at one of the suppliers in Thailand. So the pilot overview, our objectives here is to measure and verify GHG reduction in rice produced under the SRP standard. It enables companies to claim verified scope 3 mitigations within their supply chains and extend the scope of SRP assurance scheme to deliver additional value for user via an insetting model. So again, this is not offsetting, there is no carbon market, this is an insetting model. And then the pilot scope is focusing on northern India starting in April 2024 and it will be ended this month in 2025, November. The target outcomes is to have these emission factors for SRP compliant rice farming to accurately quantify GHG reductions and also have this data for SRP buyers to support their scope 3 mitigation target, economically and technically viable methodology to achieve large-scale implementation. We work with multiple partners. We have Mars Food as the off-takers, Regrow as the MRV partners, and we have Gold Standard as a technical lesson learned partners. We have LT Foods and Ebro who are implementers as well as GIZ. Our key focus located in Haryana, Punjab, and Uttar Pradesh, and once again, there's additional work in Thailand, and then focusing on these 3 different SOP practices. And with that, I will invite one of the Regrow technical program managers. So Regrow is our MRV partners. They are provider in the agricultural carbon market, supporting growers and organizations across diverse cropping system worldwide for both offsetting and insetting programs. Elena has played a key role in supporting the SRP LCAM initiative. She has been deeply involved in multiple low carbon rice programs at Regrow and brings strong understanding of carbon policy within the rice system. Over to you, Elena.
Thank you so much, Trustee. Yeah, let's get started. So I'll be discussing some of the results and the method today. As Trustee mentioned, Regrow is the MRV partner for the low
Alina,
carbon.
could you be louder?
You need me to speak louder?
Perfect now?
Okay, great. Regrow is the MRV partner for the SRP low carbon assurance module. So that means we are supporting with collecting data, processing and quantifying data, and doing some of the verification of results as well. That mainly involves checking the data that's provided on the platform to make sure it is not doesn't have errors, etc. So we'll start off today by talking about the key results for India and Thailand. So you can see that there were a total of 2,030 hectares enrolled in India, and LT Foods enrolled majority of those hectares. The SRP practices adopted were quite strong across all of the enrolled fields. So everyone was able to implement residue management interventions and irrigation management interventions, so AWD or improved irrigation. And then most of the fields reduced their nitrogen applications as well. In some cases, the nitrogen wasn't reduced just because the baseline was a common practice baseline, and in some cases that was a higher nitrogen application lower than what was applied in the program. So we had very strong reductions for India. We had an average delta of 899 kilograms of CO2 per ton of rice. So 899 kilos reduced per ton of rice grown during the program, which was a really great effort. And we'll talk about, what was driving those changes in the coming slides. Next slide, please, Trustee. For Thailand, there were also very strong hectares enrolled, so almost 5,000 hectares enrolled here, and similar implementation of SRP practices, including the residue management and irrigation management across all fields, and then nutrient management across most fields. The reductions seen per ton of rice for Thailand were much less than India. Only 181 kilos of CO2 per ton of rice, compared to almost 900 for India. So the key differences, or why we were seeing less reductions for India compared to Thailand, was firstly due to a different methodology used. So India used a tier 2 emission factor approach, which is more granular, using regional emission factors compared to Thailand. The reason that the different methods were used between the two countries were just because of the data that was available. So we were able to find data sets or literature to generate the country-specific emission factors for India, whereas it was harder to do that in Thailand. Another reason that the emissions reductions were lower for Thailand is because the fertilizer reductions were also lower, and in some cases the application in the project year was higher than the application in the baseline year. This was also seen in some fields in the Indian regions, but it was more prominent and impacted outcomes more so for the Thailand fields. Another reason that we saw a lower reduction for Thailand was that there was a lower residue burning occurring for Thailand compared to India. So that meant that there were less emissions reductions made. And then finally, in some cases for Thailand, there were no irrigation management changes, and therefore there was no methane reduction seen. So in summary, there was a methodology difference that contributed to the lower reductions, and then in some cases the Thailand fields didn't implement the SRP interventions as significantly as the Indian fields. Next slide, please. So now we will discuss the quantification approach focusing on the Tier 2 approach that was used for the Indian regions. So a Tier 2 emission factor approach was used for India, largely because we couldn't use a Tier 3 approach as data was not available to calibrate and validate the DNDC model, which Regro can provide as a service, but there is a significant amount of calibration and validation that needs to happen before those models can be used. So we pivoted to a Tier 2 emission factor approach, which means we leveraged peer-reviewed literature to determine the emission reductions that occur for the SRP practices, and then those regionally specific emission factors are used in equations to generate the outcomes. So we primarily found these Tier 2 emission factors in government data sets. These were national data sets. In some cases, they were coming from 2018 reports or 2021 reports. And these were deemed usable and accurate enough to use as part of the quantification method. So these were the Tier 2 emission factors used. The greenhouse gas types that were accounted for in outcomes were the methane. So they were contributing or coming from the irrigation activities and burning activities, and then N2O, or nitrous oxide, coming from the fertilizer reductions and also burning. We used a common practice baseline for this program, largely because baselines, they do require a significant amount of historic data, which can be hard to collect when there are multiple farmers and fields involved in a program. So it's in some cases more efficient and more accurate to use a common practice baseline generated, in this case, from peer-reviewed literature, government sources, and then LT Foods also supported generating their, business as usual fertilizer applications, and we could apply that to the common practice baseline for all of the fields in India. There were no uncertainty deductions applied, but if uncertainty wants to be accounted for in outcomes in the future, these uncertainty values could be taken from some of the reports we use to generate the Tier 2 emission factors. And those uncertainty deductions would sit around 15 to 20%, which is aligned with the gold standard proposal for Tier 2 emission factors as well. I think that is it for this slide. Yes, thank you. So to complete the quantification, we collected specific data points for the cultivation period. So these included the field boundaries, and this allowed us to determine total hectares of the enrolled fields. We also requested the crop type, planting and harvest dates, yields, and the residue harvested and burnt for that cultivation period. We requested what type of irrigation was implemented for the cultivation period during the program, and then the product and nitrogen amounts applied during the program as well. So these were all of the data points we needed to quantify final outcomes using the Tier 2 emission factor approach. These were also collected all through the MRV platform. Yeah, thanks, Trusty. And these are just some high-level insights from the program. So the key takeaway is that the irrigation management, switching from continuous to multiple drains or increasing the number of drains, had the the most significant impact to the outcomes, or was the biggest contributor within the final outcomes. So this was reducing CH4 emissions, methane emissions. And then the next intervention that created the biggest impact was residue burning. So this really driving both the methane emissions and the N2O emissions. And then finally, the fertilizer management or N reductions was contributing the least amount and was contributing again to the N2O emissions there. Yeah, so key takeaway here is really water management is a really significant driver for low emission rice.
Okay, thank you, Elena. I think that's your last slide. And moving to the stories from the field, so we have Fikram from LT Foods will share the stories how they collect the data and also what are the benefits. And so Fikram Mehla is an agronomist with over a decade of expertise advancing sustainable rice and regen rice cultivations with LT Foods. Since 2016, he leads SRP implementation with farmers across India, driving best practices, pesticide compliance, and field extensions. He leads the SRP low carbon assurance, the rice pilot, and now heads the rice carbon farming project using AWD to cut methane, save water, and boost farmer income. So, Vikram, are you there?
Yes, Prashni. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Great. Yes, we can hear you. So I hope you can share your experience within 5 minutes. That's okay?
Yeah, that's fine, Prashni.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good afternoon, all. Firstly, I would like to thank the SRP, firstly for entrusting LT Foods with the responsibility of serving as an implementation partner for the low carbon assurance module. That's the pilot project in India. And today also, I appreciate the opportunity to present our implementation experience and insights from the field. So the LCAM pilot project in India, it was a collaborative and coordinated effort involving SRP, Regrow, LT Foods, Mars, and most importantly, our participating farmers from northern India, from Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, and Uttarakhand. So under this pilot project, we had I think 154 farmers that we registered based on business requirement, and all those farmers demonstrated the strong engagement and commitment to the program's objective. So as far as LT Foods SRP program is concerned, so LT Food has been working with the SRP standards for nearly a decade. We can say from the day one we are working on this, and as a result of having an experience of almost 1 decade of implementation of SRP practices, so under this pilot project, it doesn't pose as a challenge for our team. So our extensive experience in these farmer mobilizations, SRP standard implementations, field level advisory. So all these points helped us to provide a sound platforms for executing this project effectively. So under this low carbon assurance module pilot project introduced for us a significant operational requirement. So that was basically the precise field mapping. Previously, in our mobile application which we were using, so our field teams persons were collecting only the GPS coordinates of individual plots. So under this LCAM framework, we require to transitions from this point-based data to a suitable data applications, you can say, to complete the polygon mapping of each field. So for that, we also introduced a new mobile applications where we can capture these polygons, and in the latest applications, also conducted the trainings of our field teams and rigorously quality checks to ensure accuracy and the consistency in the program. So with this aspect, initially it was challenging, but with the technical guidance from the regrow team and the support from SRP. So we overcame these challenges during the program. So throughout the implementation periods, we conducted regularly fortnightly and monthly meetings, review meetings with the SRP team and the regrow team. So these team meetings helped us to, you can say, the progress, the monitoring of the program, data quality checks, and the consistency in adoptions of, you can say, LCM interventions, which trustee have shared. So it was more about the improved irrigation practices, shift from continuous flooding to alternate wetting and drying practices, nutrient management, and then the residue management. So this collaborative monitoring approach of all the factors contributed significantly to the successful executions of this pilot program. So personally, I believe that the integrating this LCM alongside the SRP standards will provide a stronger, more future-oriented sustainability framework for the rice sector. So as this was the first implementation phase, you can say the pilot project under the LCM framework. So we recognize this. There is always a scope of improvement, and the lesson learned during this pilot has already been shared by the SRP team, and they will play definitely an important role in refining and strengthening the future phases of this LCM program. So in last, I extend my sincere appreciations to the SRP team, Regrow, Mars Food, and other program partners, and also our participating farmers for their unwavering support, partnership, and commitment during this program. So this collective effort has enabled the successful implementation of low carbon assurance module pilot in India, and we are also looking forward to contributing to its continued growth and impact in the future. Thank you, Trustee, for giving this opportunity. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for your sharing experience. And moving to, so this is a pilot project. As we all know, pilots means we all learn. And as explained by Elena, that there are some missing piece during the initiations, implement this pilot project in India. So there's a remote sensing piece missing. Therefore, we reach out to other partners, an AI and AgTech startup, Coral Labs, that's their name. This Coral Labs is supported by the European Space Agency, Swiss Food Research, and the EIT Seedbed Incubator. Building on decades of research from Agroscopes and ZAO, Coral Lab has developed a data platform that translates field trial insights into a crop nutrition recommendation system. So we work with Coral Labs to collaborate with them to get the let's say the verification piece to apply if this data-driven solution for sustainable rice productions and for the performance monitoring. So there are results that I would like to present here. Unfortunately, Coral Labs representative cannot join these sessions, but these are the notes from them. So this 2024 LCAM pilot shows significant emission reductions. These are the facts. Between 800 plus and 960 kilograms of CO2 per ton of rice. These results were based on farmer-reported practices validated against national baselines. So it's really important that we know around this number, the significant amount of the total emission reductions came from water management interventions, which confirms that irrigation practices are the key driver of methane reduction in rice systems. Therefore, Coral Labs focusing on the water management, remote sensing or verifications. However, the pilot also revealed that the key limitations are occurred. Irrigation data, which is self-reported, and there was no special or remote verifications of AW adoptions. This limits scalability, comparability, and credibility when reporting against external targets such as SBTi, for example. So these gaps are used as lesson learned in our future phase in Vietnam that's still ongoing. We are the initial project development in Vietnam. We will going to give you a little bit of information in the last of the sessions. So with this gap, we also asked Core Labs to do this remote sensing enhancement using the Sentinel-1. To address these limitations from the pilot, we explored a remote sensing enhancement as a proof of concept. They're using Sentinel-1 and then they're able to detect field conditions such as flooding, which helps indicate transition into AW practices. This exercise focusing on 418 SRP fields covering around 1,400 plus hectares in India. So from the exercise from Core Lab, the results show strong potential to support a hybrid tier 2.5 MRV approach where farmers reported data is strengthened with remote verifications. So looking forward, this forms just one piece of a broader pathway for scaling by combining ground truthing, remote sensing, and predictive AI. We can greatly enhance coverage, improve the reliability, and reduce the overall cost of verifications. So this will position Alcam to deliver a scalable and cost-effective assurance model for sustainable rice system at national and global levels. Again, this is pilot, and then we try to use the lesson learned from this pilot and improve in the next phase. So in this slide, I would like to introduce the satellite verification work that Core Labs has been doing. What we are seeing here is clustering analysis using Sentinel-1 radar data from 2021 up to 2024. So this, since 2024 data are used for the pilot in India. So the key takeaway here is in 2024, the appearance of new group shown here as a blue cluster, or they call it cluster 2. This new pattern is consistent with partial adoption of AWD, altered wetting and drying. The analysis focused on only water management practices, which contributes significant total GHG reductions under the low carbon assurance model. So while this does not yet confirm, because as mentioned, we need to, there are missing pieces in this pilot. So it provides independent indicative evidence that irrigation behavior is changing following the SRP training. So these are the preliminary interpretation and validations are needed here. Based on the satellite-based analysis, we can draw 4 early insights that guide our interpretation, but also highlight where further validation is required. So the first preliminary interpretation is a distinct irrigation pattern emerged in 2024 that wasn't visible in prior years. So this suggests a potential shift in water management behavior aligned with the hypothesis of AWD adoptions. The second is while this new cluster indicates changes, the variability of water level is lower than what we typically expect from full wet-dry AW cycles. This means the behavior may reflect partial or less pronounced AWD rather than strong silico drying. And third, we use multiple indicators here, including clustering and wetness index. So Core Labs using multiple indicators. And I will not present this here because it's very technical, but feel free to reach out to SRP if you want to understand further. But using these, several of them point in the same directions. However, the signals are not yet strong or consistent enough to be considered conclusive on their own. Finally, confirming AWD adoption requires on-the-ground validation, and integrating field-level irrigation logs will be essential to verify which farmers are actually implementing AWD, to what extent, and how reliable this can be detected from space. To summarize, Core Labs' work gives independent, specially derived evidence of water management changes across SRP fields. The findings are consistent across multiple set of indicators, pointing to a W-type behavior in about half of the monitored fields. Since water management accounts for a significant percentage of total emission reduction under LCAM, this verification adds real credibility to the result. Overall, this collaboration shows that SRP is evolving toward transparent, data-driven assurance, linking what happens in the field with measurable climate outcomes. So the key lesson learned here, the lesson from India drive a streamlined, scalable low carbon assurance system. So now we are moving to Vietnam's working with different MRV partners because we want to make sure LCAM, the low carbon assurance module, is generic enough. So if you have producers, you are partnering with other MRV partners, not Regro, not Carbon Farm, you can still use the LCAM. You can still verifiable using your own MRV partners. So as we transition from the India pilot to the next LCAM phase in Vietnam, several key lessons have emerged. So the first here is to have strong MRV is not negotiable. The India pilot showed that investment in training, digital tools, and quality control significantly improve credibility and trust in reported results. Second, context matters. Emission reduction potential is not uniform. It varies by region, baseline practices, and farming systems. This tells us that a one-size-fits-all model will not work here. So local collaboration is essential. Third, farmer engagement is critical because adoption doesn't happen just because protocol exists. It happens when farmers involved, they're engaged, they see clear value, receive accessible support, feel recognized, which drove high participation in India. And finally, combine data with technology is how we're going to scale up. Integrating field-level information with remote sensing and digital platforms unlock cost-effective verification across thousands of farms. That is our goals. We also draw nuanced insight from each country. For example, in India, there are strong coordination, deep farmer engagement, and clear emission reductions. In Thailand, we also learned the importance of baseline accuracy, data quality protocols, and region-specific adaptations. In Vietnam, is now well positioned. So we work and we're making sure from the beginning that we work with the institutional backing and digital infrastructures in place. So moving to Vietnam, I just want to give you an overview that we have partners, Carbon Farm as our MRV partners. We also work with the Lotus Rice since September 2025, and it will be ended in October next year, 2026. The objectives of the LCAM in Vietnam is to provide a credible, scalable pathway to verify low carbon rice under SRP assurance, enable Lotus Rice to offer compliant Scope 3 reporting and reduction to potential buyers, fully integrate LCAM process into existing SRP assurance framework. So this project again is funded by an ISIL grant to validate commercial viability. We aiming up to 2,500 hectares delivered at no cost under these pilots, depend on where your producer or your project is located. So this model is evolving. Your feedback will shape the final design of the low carbon assurance model. In Vietnam, we set a clear roles and responsibility. SRP, as a scheme owners, we're going to define and steward LCAM within the SRP assurance framework, provide and approve communication and claims framing, coordinate with partners and governance. And Carbon Farm as technical partner or MRV partners, going to provide LCAM methodology guidance and MRV platform, specify data requirements, define baseline and monitoring requirements, and deliver trainings, tools, methodology, and verification support materials. And our implementation partners, the Lotus Rice under the Blue Oceans company, they will engage with producers group. They're the one who own the internal manager, or they're the one who manage the internal management system. So they will manage the onboarding and data readiness, collect and validate the field boundaries, collect some additional data as per the methodology that being built by MRV partners, which is Carbon Farm. And lastly, we also work closely with the CAB, Conformity Assessment Body, to plan and execute verification activities under the SRP assurance, and then review evidence package, confirm conformity of evidence based on the LCAM methodology. These are the timeline. It was kicked off in September 2025, and we managed to ask for extra time, so we were going to wrap up in November 2026, even though the activities will be ended in October 2026. As mentioned, that we are aiming for 2,500 hectares. So if you have producers located within these three provinces, Dong Tap, An Giang, or Kiên Giang, then please reach out to SRP Secretariat if you want to join the LCAM in Vietnam. And then they are not currently enrolled or planning to be enrolled in carbon credit, because again, I would like to emphasize that this is in-setting models. It's not offsetting or entering carbon market. And then if your producer is planning on going through SRP process for at least one rice growing season in the end of 2026, then you are eligible. And then if you're already applying SRP standard practices adopted within the last 3 years, regardless of whether they have previously gone through the assurance process or not, then you are eligible. And then you have to have a strong IMS, the internal management system infrastructure in place, because LCAM work with or through the internal management system mechanism. So I will stop here. This is my last slide, and thank you for participating in these sessions. So I will check with Tarida. Is there any questions?
Ibu Trustee, there's a question about what is tier. Maybe we can ask Elena to answer the questions, to explain about the tier.
Elena?
Yes, I can. So the tiers, tier is like a
you speak louder?
category. You need me to speak louder? Is this better?
Yes. Sorry, Elena.
It's okay. A tier is referring to a quantification approach. So this is related to how IPCC talks about different types of quantification of GHG emissions, and is referred to in the carbon market generally. So tier 3 is the most accurate or highest, has the highest granularity of quantification, and that is where you would be using field level data and a direct form of quantification of the GHG emissions. So that might look like a gas chamber, a model, or direct sampling of some kind. Tier 2 is slightly less accurate and granular, and that's what we used for the Indian fields, and that is essentially reviewing literature from the region of what was the GHG reductions or emission factors associated with the interventions that you want to quantify. But I think the key thing for the tier 2 is that you're using data sets that are specific to the country or to the region that you're interested in. And then the tier 1 is the highest or least granular approach, and that is where you're drawing from global emission factors, or in some cases country emission factors that have been generated by IPCC. So you're not getting the yeah, you're not seeing the differences between countries. They're more high level and more conservative emission factors that you're using to quantify the emission reductions for the interventions you're interested in. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Elena. I see, well, there's so many questions, which we only have 5 minutes left. Therefore, I'm proposing if we can record the questions, I mean, we will collect the questions, we will work on it, and then we can share it to all participants. We hope we can address all of them now, but I don't think we have time. But I will make sure means not only me, but also our partners here, Alena and Vikrams, and probably other partners that's involved in this pilot can address the questions. Is that okay? I hope that's okay, because I have another round of survey led by Smita. Are you there, Smita?
This is just a short feedback survey, and given that we have a lot of open questions and not enough time to answer them, I think what we'll do is just request you to take the survey. It is self-paced, and in the end, it will allow you to submit your suggestions, which could include, if you want, let's say, a follow-up session at some point just to address some of the questions, or if there was a particular topic you're interested in getting more information about, you can, put that into your suggestions. We will take that up later. For now, this is just a self-paced survey. Please go through that, submit how you felt about the session and what your suggestions are going from here. Please scan this QR code to join. It'll take you just 2 minutes to share your feelings. We do hope a lot of you will submit your feedback here, because it will help us get a sense of how you felt about this session, but it will also give us feedback on what you want to hear from us next. So we really urge you to take this really short and quick survey. Trustee, meanwhile, if you have any closing comments, please feel free, because I'll just keep this QR code here running and we'll collect the feedback after the session.
Thank you, Shumita. Sorry, I cannot read all the comments. It's been wonderful to have all participations, comments, questions. Again, I just want to thank you all for joining these sessions. It's not perfect. I know there are bigger noise. I'm echoing sometimes. Apologize for that. And for the questions, I will make sure we put all the questions in one page, and it will not be one page, I think. It will be in pages because there are so many questions. And then we try our best to address your question. We probably will reach out to you individually to learn from you, because I also noticed there are experts joining this session, and we are so grateful you make time to be in this lesson learned webinar from the SRP low carbon assurance module. So that will be my final word, Shumita. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much for all your active participation. I'm going to keep sharing this screen for a few moments, even past the time, because some of you might still be keen in your responses. Please feel free. We will share a summary of things. And as Christy was saying, I think the questions will not fit into one page, let alone the answers. So we will circulate a summary of this afterwards for all your consumption. But thanks, this is exciting for us. Christy kind of proves that we are moving absolutely in the right direction, addressing what people are looking for. So a very optimistic day for us.
And I forgot to mention thank you for Elena, despite she is not well today, she is still joining the sessions. And Vikram, thank you for your story from the field. And I guess we are already in the hour, so thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
So we'll just keep this open for a few seconds.